The diagnosis comes, dementia. Your world starts spinning and you don't know what to expect next. Where do you turn to? Who do you turn to? Will people understand how you're feeling? Will they support you? Finding the safe place to land after a diagnosis upends you, after a diagnosis upends you, oh, this is crap, sorry, let me try again. Take two. Okay. The diagnosis comes, dementia. Your world starts spinning and you don't know what to expect next. Where do you turn to? Who do you turn to? Will people understand how you're feeling? Will they support you? Finding the safe place to land after a diagnosis upends you is incredibly valuable for both caregivers and individuals living with dementia. It can be critical to the success of your next steps. Today, I'm speaking with Donna Spellman, the director of Lifted, the Brain Wellness Center, and longtime facilitator of support groups for people who love and care for those living with dementia. Donna, thank you for joining me today. I know you've come at this space with a lot of experience and can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. So we'll launch right in. I'm going to ask you a few questions and let's have some fun. So when you're thinking about joining a support group after post-diagnosis, say, what do you think make up the three most important elements for finding a support group for those who are seeking one?
Well, first of all, accessibility. Can I regularly attend? And I think regularity, is something that's really important because you're developing a relationship with the other people in the group. Mm-hmm. So, to be able to, the first time you're sort of feeling out who's in the group, can I relate to these people, can they relate to me? And the second time, people are more familiar, and by the third time that you're meeting, now these are your peers. This is your circle. This is your group. So regularity, accessibility, that really matters. Secondly, again, who are the people? Are these people who are similar to me? For example, I run a number of different groups. I run a spouse support group. I also run an open support group. It's a very different element when you can really hone in. When it's spouses, it's very specific. Mm-hmm. It's very much about the husband-wife, wife-husband.
Yeah, the dynamics.
Husband-husband, wife-wife dynamics. Mm-hmm. It's just that's just the bottom line. When it's the whole family, an adult child is going to have a very different experience than a spouse,
right?
Or a friend. Mm-hmm. So that's very different. So who's in the group? How specific is it? And then the third thing I think is, when you have your friendship, when you have your circles, we don't all mesh with everybody. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people have to just try out different groups until they find their people.
Kind of like dating.
Exactly. And, you'll know it's a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I'll tell you, a good group, an effective group, is not so much about who is facilitating it. Mm-hmm. It's much more about who's in the group.
Right.
Because, don't be fooled out there. If you have a facilitator who's talking more than the members of the group, that's a lecture. That's not a group.
Yeah.
A support group, you're getting support from each other.
Yeah, that peer-to-peer support, I think, would go a long way because you know that they're walking in the same shoes you are, shared experiences, and being able to communicate with one another on that level, which a facilitator may or may not be coming from the same experience, but it's better, like you say, to have the peers guide each other and help each other, sustain each other with the help of the facilitator. So that's excellent.
Yeah.
So when somebody joins a support group, what do you think that they can expect to gain by being there, or what should they look for in a support group?
Again, question number one, what can they gain from being there? They can gain a level of support, information, again, that understanding, as you just said, of, wow, I'm not the only one. There are other people here though no two situations are exactly the same, but there are people here who really, are about as close to being the same as me in, nobody knows what it's like to be a care partner except another care partner.
Right.
And so that in and of itself, that understanding of, wow, you really get it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm experiencing. And then what I absolutely love about support groups is that there's a safety in the room where participants can challenge each other. I'll hear so often, I'll use this just as an example, I'll hear so often in a group people who say, well, I can't take it anymore, I really need help at home, but my wife won't allow it. And then another person in the group will say, well, it's not about your wife, that you need the help, so you need to make it happen anyway. Mm-hmm. And you need to explain to your wife that it's for you. And and those are like little tips and things that come out of the groups, or even things like, did you hear about this clinical trial? Mm-hmm. Or have you tried this technique? Or we yesterday, or Tuesday, we spent a lot of time talking about when is it okay to tell not quite the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't like to say the little white lies, the healthy fibs, the stretched truth, whatever you want to call it. And you can have those very frank conversations in a group because the people in the group understand that sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you have to just do what you have to do. But somebody who's not walking down that same road, doesn't necessarily get it.
Right. Well, so what do you think would be the hesitancy or the resistance or barrier that people feel before they reach out for that help in terms of joining a support group to get that? Is it access to the information? Is it lack of availability, or in terms of the amount of support groups that are available to them, the time of day? What would you say are some of the barriers, and how best to overcome those barriers?
Well, I would say that those are some of the physical barriers. Mm-hmm. Of, well, I just can't get there, or I'm not available at that time. Those are some of the sort of concrete barriers. And there are groups, there are online groups, there are groups all over the place. I am a big fan of in-person groups because I just think that human connection, as great as we've all gotten at doing things electronically and online and Zoom and Microsoft meetings and all of that, or Google Meets and whatever, but there are relationships that come out of groups. I would say though that the bigger resistance to people is not so much the concrete stuff, but there's a fear. There's a fear that often people are afraid of. How might I react? What if I get emotional at a group? Mm-hmm. This is hard stuff. What if I cry? Mm-hmm. What if I find something funny? What if what if I react to something? So people are afraid of that. People are also afraid, or not afraid, but I've heard people say, well, I don't want to hear other people's problems. Mm-hmm. I have my own problems. I don't want to hear other people's problems. Truthfully, both of those things are unnecessary fears. The truth of the matter is that if we're in a group together, your challenge is my challenge. My challenge might look slightly different, but I get what you're saying because I'm experiencing something, or I have experienced something similar, or you know what, I might experience that, but now I'll know what to do, right, or how to respond, or who to ask for help, those kind of things. And in terms of somebody's response, say somebody touched on something that really hit a place in your heart, and you're tearful. I mean, if you can't do it amongst people who really understand, where else is a safe place? I mean, this is where group facilitators need to be skilled. Setting the rules, setting the boundaries, giving
Mhm.
everybody a voice, making sure that it's understood that everything that is said in the group stays in the group. Just making sure that people understand that they're protected, that this is a safe place to say, you know, we don't hurt each other, you know, that we listen and we support each other.
And that burden shared is a burden lifted. So I really love that, and it resonates a lot, not just for, say, care partners, but also people who are living with dementia and supporting one another. There's a certain power that comes, or an empowerment, that sense of empowerment to know that you're not alone, to share it with one another, to offer that peer-to-peer advice, to say, hey, do you know what worked for me, and how that came about, and you know, while it might not be identical, as you say, it's similar. You're walking in the similar shoes to mine, even though they're not identical. And just to be able to get that education from one another, the support, the love, and yeah, maybe sometimes, you know, the challenges from one another to say, well, you know, why wouldn't you do this? Or why wouldn't you think of yourself in this instance? When shouldn't you think of yourself, especially
Right.
considering? So it's great to have that going back and forth, and to have the relationships that develop as your lifeline of support beyond the group. I imagine you've seen a lot of that in your time too.
You bet. I always think of two women who used to attend a group that I led quite some time ago, and sadly both of them, within a few months of each other, both of them lost their husbands, and the two of them became sort of their own internal support group within our larger group. They both continued to attend the group even after they lost their spouses, because the group was a safe place and it was a group of friends, and they were able to continue to share what that experience was like. But these two women, to this day, I'm very much in touch with them. They have lunch together, they go walking together, like they've become best friends forever, BFFs. And it's really nice, and it's really genuine.
It's special.
It's very special, and again, because who better understands than somebody who just went through the same thing?
Right, and what they could offer to people that are walking in the footsteps behind them, because as we know, it's an ongoing issue.
Yes.
So if you had one opportunity to say to somebody who's diagnosed today, or their loved one's diagnosed today, and they're just kind of at that point of floating in the water wondering what next, what would you say to that person about support groups?
Oh, absolutely. Join a group right away.
Yeah.
Because nobody has to go down this road alone,
Yeah.
ever. And, you know, this is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
So joining a group, finding your people, hopefully your people are in my group, because I love facilitating groups.
You're darn good at it.
Thank you. But, you know, find your group, because that group becomes your lifeline.
Yeah, great. Well, today we decided to talk about caregiver support groups because here at Lifted, the Brain Wellness Center, we have weekly caregiver support groups on Tuesdays at 12 noon. And it's an open enrollment, so it means that you can come at any time. You don't have to be a member of Lifted, the Brain Wellness Center. You can just come because we believe strongly that people should be supported no matter where they are in their journey. And you can't get in better hands than Donna Spellman. So thanks so much for doing that and for sharing your heart with the people that you work with every day. And give us a call if you want to get involved in the support groups. We'd be happy to welcome you.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.